Palin, like all of the other candidates, is also, of course, hoping to win over voters that aren't married to one party or the other. And Jackie Salit is the president of independentvoting.org, the Independent Voters, and she is my guest from New York this morning. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, Heather. How are you?
I am well, thank you, and thanks for giving us some time today. Let me sort of tap into your state of mind politically right now. As an independent voter, why haven't you committed to one or the other parties at this point?
See, I think that independent voters across America are looking at two things. They're looking at what the candidates are saying, what they stand for, what issues they're speaking to, and the direction they want to take the country in. They are also looking to see which candidates show that they understand the reason that there are so many independents in the United States of America today. 40% of the country today consider themselves independents. That is huge in a political culture and a political process that is dominated by a two-party arrangement, the Democrats and Republicans. So independents want to know what the candidates have to say about a range of issues, the economy, the international situation, etc. But they also are looking to see whether those candidates have any appreciation of the fact that so many people in this country don't care for the political process.
Okay, so that's really interesting. That's the backdrop for you, the bottom line for you as an independent voter. How did Sarah Palin then do, to speak to yourself personally, as you heard her speak last night in her national debut?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question. On the one hand, her talk was, I think, mainly designed to appeal to the Republican Party base and to social conservatives in particular. So I think she did a good job at that. She's a good speaker. She was feisty and outspoken, and I think people like that, and that's good. I think, however, the main line in her speech that she was using to try to appeal to independents was to position herself as an outsider, to say, I'm not part of the permanent political establishment, and I come from the outside. Part of the problem with that argument for her, I think, is that while she is an outsider, she was just plucked from obscurity from what is probably the biggest and most powerful insider political organization in the country, namely the Republican Party. So independents are going to be looking, I think, very closely to see how she squares those two things, and can she? Is she simply using the rhetoric and the attempt to appeal to independents? And by the way, independents are used to this because we've become now the decisive force in American elections. We actually chose the two major party candidates. It was independents that fueled Barack Obama's run to the Democratic nomination. Without independents, Hillary Clinton is the nominee today. And likewise for John McCain, his campaign was dead and almost written off entirely as gone and irrelevant until independents came to his aid in New Hampshire and resurrected his candidacy. So independents are the force that is increasingly setting the pace for what's happening in this country. But one of the things that I think is so interesting and challenging about this moment is it really pushes the candidates and the parties to have to figure out, well, what are these independents really all about? What do we care about? And one of the things that we care about is the fact that the political system has gone off track, and many, many independents hold both political parties and the party system responsible for that.
That's a criticism of the system as a whole. I'm wondering, again, back to Sarah Palin, particularly from last night, perhaps much to attract voters, at least in the base, maybe not, connecting beyond that as you're suggesting, but I wonder if there's a flip side that you may have perceived. Was there anything in her style or her substance that may have turned off independent voters? Some were very unimpressed by how sarcastic she was with regard to Barack Obama, for example. Anything that you saw last night that perhaps didn't just woo you, turn you right off?
Well, I think there's two things to say about that. I think that's a really important question, Heather. One is that the independent voter and the independent movement has a history of its own. One of the things that's happened in its history is that it's been through an experience with Pat Buchanan in 2000, when a social conservative came into the independent movement, in effect masquerading as an independent, only to be betrayed by that person. So I think that independents are a little bit circumspect about someone like a Sarah Palin who comes in with that kind of politic but is also trying to connect to independents. And I don't know that she did very much to dispel that concern. But the other thing that I would say, Heather, is that when the independent movement burst onto the scene in 1992 with the Ross Perot phenomena, the big call, the big theme was we've got to take our government back, that the American people have lost control over our government and over our own political process. She tried to use some of those themes that last night and to invoke that same spirit and that same issue. The only difference is that it's not 1992 anymore, it's 2008, and independents have become, I think, wiser and more sophisticated in a lot of ways. One of the ways that that's happened is that independents are starting to say to themselves and to the country as a whole, hey, if we want to take our country back but we haven't been able to, don't we have to take a look at the reason why we haven't been able to do that? And increasingly independents are saying, you know what, we think the parties are responsible for that the parties have placed themselves in between the American people and our government, and they increasingly exercise political power on their own behalf, but not on behalf of the American people. That's why so many people are becoming independents today.
And why we're talking to you, such an important force, have to get a handle on for this election. Jackie, thank you for giving us some time this morning.
Thanks for having me.
CBC News will have more coverage of the Republican National Convention tonight. John McCain delivers his speech 10 p.m. Eastern Time.
Commercial-free music you won't find anywhere else. The new CBC Radio 2, everywhere music takes you.